If you don't remember,
Hey everyone! I haven't had much chance to speak on it, but Telltale games were always a lot of fun for me. Playing out a story, controlling parts of the outcome, even if it felt like it was mostly on rails, it was still an awesome experience that I always looked forward to. In terms of value, the games would take about 10 hours. It was really easy to know what you could expect. Because of that, for me at least, I looked forward to every new release. Road 96 is a game that seemingly came out of nowhere. It offers a similar experience in terms of you being a character in a story that your choices help to shape. The biggest difference here is that you aren't the main character. In fact, you don't even get a name. Unlike a Telltale story, we're also not hopping into familiar intellectual property either. We're going into a completely original tale with crisscrossing story arcs. In a very unique twist, your playable character, or more accurately characters, are a variety of random nobody teenagers, all looking to leave the country for a variety of different reasons. The actual story that takes place here is about the country and its future as an important election approaches. A number of different named NPCs are each progressing through their individual, twisting stories as the game plays on. Your interaction with them at various points will help shape their futures as well as the entire country. Each of your teen characters makes their way for the border, and regardless of how it turns out, you'll start another teen character when the tale of the first one ends. This game is far more politically charged than anything else I've played recently, and the politics here are even more central to the story and in your face than even what you might remember from the Far Cry series. Depending on your own political leanings, you might love this or you might hate this. The game starts at the cusp of a dictatorship. Tyrak, the current evil president, is running for re-election. You have options as you play that'll affect the outcome of the election. Vandalizing posters, making various conversation choices, even a few big moment of truth moments will all make light changes to the poll results. Whether you're successful or not in your attempts to escape the country, you'll see the effects on the upcoming election as you end each run. Being able to sacrifice your character without any negative consequence is definitely a bit of an immersion breaker. But despite the first-person experience, you never really have much of a chance to become close with your character to begin with. In addition, one of the consequences to having such a large and diverse cast of NPC characters mean that each of them have relatively extreme stories, but you don't get time or any real involvement in those stories to build any sense of rapport. While the voice acting and the art direction was great, their individual stories and encounters made them more like caricatures than relatable people. And their stories weren't wacky enough to put them in that same over-the-top but still immersive category as something like Borderlands. The special items you acquire somehow move from one teen to the next, unlocking new options like picking locks, opening safes, and a few other exploration choices. You'll happen on these randomly in the story as well. They aren't really earned, they're just unlocked along the way. Because of these tools, runs within each game will progressively get easier in terms of gathering up money, but even cold hard cash has very limited use aside from food, additional music tapes, and the ability to take a taxi or a bus instead of hitchhiking. This is a good time to explain that while you're prompted hundreds of times within this game with choices, 99% of them don't matter. The game makes a very big deal out of the larger choices that do matter, but doesn't even make much of an effort to hide that in most cases you're just clicking to continue a story that's on rails. Even to the extent at which the bigger choices actually change things is very limited. Having already explained I was a big fan of Telltale games, I actually don't mind an on-rails experience if the writing, the story, and the immersion are all solid. It can make for a great game. Road 96, however, has more of an uphill battle investing players into this unknown story with untested characters. For the most part, I found most of the characters really fun and engaging, but it wasn't universal. In some of these story events, I found myself locked into helping someone I genuinely couldn't care less about, and the illusion of choice is shattered. I think a lot of players might read into the claim that every road trip is different, and have some different assumptions for what that might mean. While by design this game isn't going to have the level of storytelling and replayability as we saw with something like Wildermyth, the road trip statement itself is true because the same events can simply take place in a different relative order for each player. The overall tale being told, though, for the most part, is static. The endings are lightly flavored, and a repeat playthrough, just like watching a movie for the second time right afterward, playing it again isn't going to change anything significantly enough to justify going back through those long sequences. The political message in this game runs so strongly that I think it deserves a second mention. Making choices that encourage people to vote, or encouraging more progressive candidates label you a moderate, as opposed to the other option of encouraging vocal or violent protests and revolution. Setting aside that there's a lot of divided issues in politics, this is likely to have players participating in activities for values they might not even personally agree with, or potentially even disagree with. With each of your playable characters on their way out of the country before the election even happens, the outcome of the election feels like something that really shouldn't even matter to you as an individual. Tagging something like "Go vote" on a cave wall just moments before I flee the country just seems counterproductive. Adding concepts like religion or politics into a game can always be a polarizing move if it's not done with careful moderation. And unfortunately, many of the characters you meet are outright extremists in an ongoing political war. I fear it might be a little too easy with the cast of characters here to have a varied opinion of each one, but more importantly, I feel like it might be far too easy to dislike one or more of the characters. Getting locked into long cinematic sequences with a character you don't enjoy can be a painful experience in any game. This might be a really weird take, but I feel like this game uses an amazing concept, but the inclusion of so many interwoven storylines makes it really difficult to find anyone to really connect with. This same concept, for example, where you're still a nameless series of people who meet and help along a single individual. In a situation like that, it might have been much easier to really grow closer to a character, their struggles, and their story. That would have ultimately led to a very different game though, and would have taken away a lot of the great things that the devs did manage to do here. At many times in my journey, I was downright impressed by the soundscape. The 90s nostalgia litters the game visibly as well as audibly. There's a lot of great moments here in this game, because everything in it is essentially a carefully crafted cutscene. A great level of attention to detail in the art, the lighting, and even setting up the individual scenes and the camera work. It's all very apparent. And it may be because of this, but your interaction with the world in many cases almost feels like an interruption. The dialogue and action stop in most every case to present you with one or more options that ultimately just continue the scene. As a character, you feel both limited and pointless, even when the game is directly telling you that you matter. There's a few minigames that offer action-packed sections within the game, whether it be extreme sports or a Florida driving simulator. The stakes are never incredibly high even though it might look like it, and in many cases you can actually ignore the consequences completely. I believe the description of the game, calling it a procedurally ever-evolving adventure, while that might not be wholly inaccurate, it paints a picture that might have some of you gamers coming into this one with big expectations. This game is what it is. It's essentially a movie about the intersecting stories of strangers. The developers pulled off a way to tell a Pulp Fiction style story in a video game format. Now doing that was difficult enough as it is, but to make it into a story where you could actually change significant outcomes in meaningful ways, that would have been too big of an undertaking. So, is this game right for you? As long as you like what you've seen, and you aren't over-expecting, this game delivers. Again, the sound and music choices here were awesome, and the characters have very strong personalities that worked well in a lot of cases with the voice actors. The biggest issue I could see gamers facing is the expectation of real choice, because you aren't able to rage against the machine here. The game tells you a story that's designed to play out as you play through 6 or 7 lifetimes. Starting the game over may still offer a few surprises. You can't possibly see everything in a single run, but you may not want to see much else after a single run either. You can expect to be introduced to the main characters differently in a new game, but in many of those scenes, settings, the challenges are going to be exactly the same, and they're going to be unskippable. If you're looking for a game that offers infinite stories, you'd likely be better off looking at Wildermyth. So this one did quench my thirst for a genre of game I haven't seen in a while though. A single story with twists and loops set to great music, all while looking good at the same time. The overall experience and presentation here is solid, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to have fun with Road 96.
Thanks for the ride.
I guess this ended up being one of my longer videos in a while, but I appreciate you sticking with me until the end of the road. As always, thanks for watching.